what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
I think like that thing would be that like there is a lot of negativity out in the world, and
Mm.
people like back up their outlook on this to the point that they're like, no, I'm just right. Like there's just so much sadness in the world that I can't be, happy. And people would go into like, you know, our society and like
Yeah.
all this stuff. And it's like, yes, like these things may be true, but that's no reason for you to sacrifice your life feeling sad about it,
Yeah.
you know? Unless
Yeah.
that's really what you're going to take like from life, and that makes you happy. But people feeling sad doesn't usually make them
Yeah.
feel happy. So unless I'm getting that, I think that's the main thing that I wish everybody could like understand, that through everything, all of the bad, all of the good, it's you decide what you take out of all of it.
Yeah.
And I wish people decided more on the positive stuff that's out there than the negative.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it leads into that like whole thing of I know full well that in my lifetime I'm not going to be able to solve the stereotypes that disabled people are surrounded by. That's not going to happen. I'm going to do my best to change it, and I could get really worked up with why am I wasting my time trying to fix this issue when it's never going to be fixed. But I'm at least making a contribution to getting to that point where there is no more differentiation between someone with a disability and someone without. But it's that acceptance of, yes, we're not going to get there in our lifetime, and that's okay. I'm happy with that. I just want to contribute to the journey. And it's like that. The other thing that comes to mind with that is I've had people come up to me before, like, how are you so happy? And I'm like, well, I had two choices. It was either be depressed as fuck, or it would be enjoy what I can and make the most of a bad situation. Well, I say a bad situation. People ask me this all the time. Would you hand back your disability if you got the chance? And I hate to say it, but I don't think I would. I don't think I would
Yeah.
because one, I wouldn't have done half the things I've done. I wouldn't have half the opportunities I've had. I wouldn't know half the people I know. Like half of the people I know, like I wouldn't be on this podcast now. I wouldn't have spoken to you. I wouldn't. So it's all like it just life happens, and you just got to roll with it and make the best of a bad situation. Like yes, people have good and bad days, good and bad luck every now and again, but you just got to do what you can. And I think, as you say, trying to be positive as much as you can is better than constantly looking for the negatives.
Yeah. There's this pretty, simple sentence that I've been thinking about a lot, that I just like asked myself because, it's just what you see when you look at something. Like, what do you see when you look at something? And that is so different for everybody. And I think like the most observable thing is the positive or the negative. And I think it's way more than just that. But, everybody kind of sees something different when they look at the same thing. There's whole different backgrounds, and your entire personality and who you are as a person determines what you're going to see. And just shifting that as close as possible that we can to the positive in the situation, so that we can see the positive when we look at something and not the negative.
Yeah,
But
I think to give people a visual to come onto one of your talents is like art. Everyone sees a different thing when it comes to art. Like you might look at a piece and go, "Oh, I see this." You might look at a piece and go, "No, actually, I see this." So there's that whole thing of it's all a matter of perspective, and sometimes you need to remember to put life in perspective as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think it's an important question to like ask yourself. At different times in your life is like, what am I seeing when I look at this situation right now? What am I seeing when I look at something? And like try to, zoom out and get some perspective on your own self, so that you're not so caught up in your mind. Get outside of yourself a little bit and just ask yourself, what do I see when I look at something?
Yeah. take a
Yeah.
take a wide lens of what's going on, and try and look, like you say, look from outside, and don't I think that's another big issue. Don't internalize absolutely everything. So like, as you say, look outside a lot more than you look inward, because if you spend too long looking inward, it can get very messy. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
but
And
but
I also want to touch on again,
yeah,
like when you say I would choose the disabled life over, an able-bodied life, that's something I think about a lot, and I would be prone, or I would say that I totally choose ability over, not being disabled. But I think like you're right when it's like you have a totally different life and all of these opportunities. Like we have no concept of what our life would be like at all if we weren't disabled.
yeah,
But chances are we probably wouldn't have been so involved with all of these amazing people, and doing this work that we're doing, and all of these amazing things. We probably would have looked farther inside of ourselves as
yeah.
opposed to looking out.